stop the video if you do not wish to have your video be recorded in a session. Today, we will be covering multiple bell ringing. So, the Shelley and 14 hand is the way that ringers use a lot in the ensemble ringing and also in a full choir setting. So when it's a full choir setting, you will often see an upper treble bell ringer. They will be holding two bells in one hand. There are two different ways of holding it. The one is, let me show you. So the clapper direction is exactly the same. So you can see the colophon on the handles and both bells. So when you hold it like this, so your thumb and your index finger and the rest of the fingers around the handle, if you hold it like this, the clapper works in the same direction, so you will be able to play those two bells at the same time. And this is also Shelley. So to damp it, you can either turn inward like this, or you can damp it on your shoulder like this. It's depending on which one is comfortable for you. But best way is touching the whole casting on your shoulders. As we mentioned, it's important to touch the casting so you damp the all overtone and occurs on the curvature of the casting. So it would be best if you feel very uncomfortable, you may damp it this way. So that was Shelley. Because in the Shelley ringing, the clapper direction is exactly the same on those two bells, it helps you to ring a very legato line because it does not need any force onto the bells in order to play them together. In the other way is 14 hand. In 14 hand, you hold bells in this way. So Shelley was like this. 14 hand, you turn it 45 degrees. So which means the clapper is working this way, and this one clapper is in the other direction. So now you can control the one bell at a time. So in order to play the bells in between your thumb and index finger, you ring it as you do not have this bell, regular ringing. In order to play the secondary bell that is sitting between index finger and middle finger, you knock on the door. But the other hand is exactly the same thing. Just like a regular ringing, and knock on the door in order to play the secondary bell. So I can play one bell at a time, the 14 hand grip, so now you can play one bell at a time. But if you need to play those two bells at the same time in the 14 hand position, you can still do so. You have to hit it in diagonal, like a ripping motion, but you have to give a really fast motion. So if you are playing really legato, sweet music that you do not want to use this technique, you always want to go Shelley so you can create beautiful arm motions. But if the music is really fast and the rhythmic piece, it will definitely do the job. Also be able to play one bell at a time. So when you have five octave set of bells, if we go to first PowerPoint slide, thank you, Cynthia. as you can see. So the bass bells, A, B, position 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bass bells, and treble bells 5, 6, 7, and 8, starting with the C6. Start to have two bells in one hand. So the position 8 is the first position, has two bells in one hand. So D6 and D7. And next one goes E6, position 9, F6, E7, F7. Next is a 10, G6, A6, G7, A7. Next, position 11, B6, C7, B7, and C8. So when you are setting up the tables, so you will see something like this set on the table. So the bigger bells that sits in your thumb and index finger, they always face inside. So you never want to hold going outside. This is a wrong way of holding it. So the bigger bell on top of the smaller bell, because you do not want to put bigger bell in these two fingers, because these two fingers are stronger than these two fingers. So you do not want to set it this way. This is a bigger and this is smaller. Okay, so it's always bigger bell on top of smaller bell, the bigger bell facing inside, like this. Okay, so now if you look at the chart below, the slide of the first slide, I made some markings, how you would mark on your score, whether it's a Shelley or 14 hand. So let's look at the slide, the first slide. So if you look at the below, the assignment chart, position 8, C6 and D6, you see slash going like this, that's the right hand. There are two lines, that means that's a Shelley. The one below, that's the 14 hand marking. And position 9, E is a left hand, goes like this, and F is a right hand going like this. The one of them, if there are two of those, that's a Shelley. If there's one of them, that's a 14 hand setting. So position 10, 6, left hand, A, right hand. Two of those shows it's a Shelley ringing. If there's only one line, that's 14 hand. And 11, B and C, left hand and right hand, Shelley ringing and 14 hand ringing. So when you are encouraging your ringers to mark it, make sure they use the same marking. So next time some other different ringer takes the music and look at it, and then they can immediately understand, oh, the person who played before played in a Shelley with the left hand, 14 hand with the right hand. So everyone can understand all the symbols and markings for the later on when you recycle the music. So now let's look at the next slide. So having the ringers who are able to do 14 hand, it can come very, very useful, especially if you do not have a lot of ringers in your choir. The reason why is, if you look at the assignment chart, the G4 through G6 is written for 2 octaves. So let's look at measure 31. So written very simple. There's a D6, D6, E6, E6, D6, and C6 on the melody line. You can easily double that up with 14 hand. So the ringers can double up, and F, the person who's playing E6 and F6, they can double up the melody and bring out the little bit more the melody by adding the upper octave, although it is not written on the music. So how many the directors have some choir members who are just beginners, and also they are very advanced ringers, and then you must have very hard time finding a music making everybody happy, right? So you don't want to pick something so hard and something so easy for the advanced choirs. In that case, you can pick something like this and add double up the melodies, the stems going up. 6 with a 7, 6 with a 7. So now people can hear the melody. It's like a cherry on the cake, little bit decorative, but it makes beautiful sound and is pleasing to the ears. And those who are really advanced ringers up top, they can enjoy playing a lot more. So if you look at measure 37 at the bottom, when the bass bells and treble stems going down, while they're doing the modulato very gently onto the padded table, you may hear just one bell, but you can simply add the sixes, which means B5 person will 14 hand B6 in their right hand. So you double it up. And next person plays C6 and C7 together. And the right hand D6 and D7 together. In that way, we can make a very simple music much more exciting that way. So now, I'd like to show you why we use sometimes a 14 hand and sometimes a Shelley. I briefly touched that earlier when I showed you how to set up the 14 hand and Shelley. So, as I said, the Shelley allows you to create beautiful lines. If I were playing in 14 hand position to play both of them together, so I cannot really give beautiful arm motion because I have to get a certain angle to get those two bells ring at the same time. I'm right-handed, so when I just was learning to do 14 hand to have those two bells ring together, I had really hard time getting it play together with my left hand because my right hand was dominant hand. It came pretty easily, but I could not get this one ring together. So I could not make a beautiful legato line on the 14 hand position. Then I had to do it in the Shelley. And sometimes I had to drop the secondary bell so I can play only one bell at a time. So if we go to the next slide, I'll explain what I mean by choosing the Shelley and choosing the 14 hand, depending on how the music is written. So this one is a Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So if you look at measure 45, so here the treble bell system is going on. Let's look at that. So 45, there are 3 bells going the melody. Da, 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 dee, da. And then 47, D7. And then, do you see the D6 on the second beat? Right? So in that case, you definitely need to have in 14 hand position so you'll be able to do, and you have a C coming after. So you'll be able to play one bell at a time. But if you look at measure 49, what do we have? 2 bells at the same time. So I would quickly turn to the Shelley position so I can give beautiful arm motion. Although it's a short note, so you can give a beautiful arm motion. And if you look at the brackets, starting in measure 51, that shows the octave high. So you have to, you will ask choir members to add upper notes octave high. So in this case, if you look at measure 51, so G6, the top note is G6, then you will add G7 to it. So in this case, I would play in Shelley. So you can bring the beautiful attack at the same time, very mellow sound. So now that goes on measure 52. So G6 with G7, B6 with B7. So you'll have in Shelley, not 14 hand. So you can see the handle, Shelley, 14 hand. So play in Shelley. So you can play those two bells attacked together. Sometimes when the ringers have 14 hand position and try to play those two bells ring together, sometimes it does not attack at the same time, that you will hear two different attacks, which we really don't want to do. So now I like to explain a little bit more. Since we are in the COVID-19 world, there are a lot of music. They're written for 12 bells. So when it's 12 bells, the settings are a little bit different. So when it's a 12 bell setting, you can have 6 people playing together. So one person will have 2 bells. So starting with, sometimes we'll start the C, sometimes we'll start on the G. So you will cover an octave. But if you only have like 5 ringers or 4 ringers or a smaller number like 3 ringers, you still can do 12 bell music, which is actually written for 6 people. In that case, you will not play E6 with E7. You will not play F6 with F7. In this case, you will 14 hand in diatonic, which means you'll play C, D, E, F. So I have a C, D, E, F. But you saw me how I played. C, D, E, F. I did not play C, D, E. Do you hear why I did not play this way? I'll play one more time. That way is not recommended. Now I'll play in the correct way. Did you hear why? Because I can damp in between the bells. When is a set in thirds, C and E, D and F, harmonically they work with each other. So even if you do not have time to damp it, it's not really critical. But if you have a C over the D like this, and you do not have time to damp it, the dissonance between these two bells may break the harmony in the music. So 14 hand, set up like this. C over E, D over F. So D over F, my right hand, C over E is my left hand. So let's look at the chart. Next slide. I will explain it while we are looking at. Thank you. So usually the 12-note music assignment will come in this way. 6 ringers, 5 ringers, 4 ringers, as small number as 3 ringers. If you have 3 ringers, that means they all have 4 bells in each, the 2 bells in each hand. So F, G, F, G, A, B flat. So it is not easy to 14 hand this large, But if one has a bigger hand, it definitely is doable. A. And position 2 goes C, D, E, and position 3 So now you have 12 notes between 3 ringers. But if you look at the one before, 4 ringers, F, G, covered by one person. A and B flat, covered by position 2. And next 4 notes, ringer 3, C, D, E, F. And next person goes G, A, B flat, C. So it's critical that you set it up in thirds, not C, D, E, F. It's a C, D, E, F. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4. So you never want to set it up 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you cannot damp sometimes, which maybe 2 is not a good practice when it comes to playing and damping. So let me show you how you can play the different intervals when you have in thirds. So obviously this is in thirds and this is in third. So still this is a space and this is a line, right? Just like any other position in the handbell music between C4 and C7, left hand is always space, right hand is always line. Here it applies also. Space third, line third. If you play the main bells between your stronger fingers, that's a second. If you play the main bell with knock-knock position, that's a second. Yeah. And then if you play knock-knock with the right hand knock-knock, that's another second. Isn't it? But if you play the left hand dominant bell with a secondary bell on your right hand, that's a fourth. Okay, so when you get all these intervals down pat, you will have no problem playing any 12-note assignment of repertoires. So let's look at the next slide. So there is a 14 hand exercises. So the first one I gave you, yeah, next slide, thank you. That one has single note going up and down, little practices, as if you're practicing on the piano. C, D, E, F, F, E, D, C. But you do it with 4 bells in your 2 hands. So left. So the marking underneath is a C over E. That's the left hand. Right hand. D over F. So it goes like this. That means that's a right hand. It goes like this. That's your left hand. C over E. D over F. I just did not put the numbers because there's just too much information there. So C, regular ringing, left hand. D, right hand, regular ringing. E, left hand, knock, knock. Right hand, F, knock. F, knock again, right hand. E, left hand, knock. D, right hand, regular ringing. C, left hand, regular ringing. So if it goes faster, it goes like this. C, D, E, F, F. So you saw me damping in between very actively, so I don't go. If I were playing like this, I might as well just hang up the bells, the bell tree, so I am not going to damp it at all. But bell tree requires different kind of sonority because the bells are not damped. But 12 bells, that's not what the music is asking for. So you have to damp it. That's why you're hooking the bells in thirds. So let's look at the next line, the C, D, C, D, E, F, and the slide before. C, left, right, regular ringing. E, knock with the left hand. F, knock with the right hand. So I'll do the whole exercise starting from measure 1. So start with a regular knock, knock, regular. Regular ringing, knock, knock, and regular ringing, right, and regular ringing. And knock. Now let's go to next slide. So I showed you a little bit of how we play the different intervals. When you are playing 4 diatonic notes, the bell is hooked in thirds. So left hand space, thirds, right hand, thirds in line, left hand, space, right hand, line. Now let's look at next notes. Actually, there are 2. Left hand, I mark as a right hand knock on the top. Together. Next one, left hand third. And next one, I mark it as a 1, 4, not 14, 1, 4. Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I use both ways with my ringers. Some do a lot better with the knock knock, but some do a lot better with the numbers. So it's up to you which one works better for you. So next one I put 1 and 4. And next one is 1 and 3, which is my left hand. So right hand is even, left hand is odd. So let's look at next one. So right hand and left hand knock. And right hand, third. And twin 3, twin 3. And next one, I have left knock, right hand knock. So I play them knock knock together. And left hand space third. And next one is 3, 4. And left hand 1 and 3. Now let's look at next one. So dominant bells in your stronger fingers, just regular ringing together. And space third, gotta be left hand. And 1 and 2. And space. So now I put the seconds with the different combinations and the fourth at the end. So let's think about this. First one is 1 and 2, left hand, right hand. Next one is 2 and 3, which means right hand, left hand knock. Next one is 3 and 4, knock, knock, both of them. And then last fourth, regular left hand and knock on right hand, in your right hand. So here we go, second, 1 and 2, and 2 and 3, and 3, 4, and 1 and 4. Okay, so I'll do the whole exercise from the top to the bottom. So I'll damp as much as I can, but when I start to have seconds, it's not always possible, but I'll do my best to damp as much as I can. So from the top, left hand, space third. And fourth coming. And 2, 3. And knock, knock. Left. Knock. And 1 and 2. Left hand third. And third. And here gets a little bit tricky. And 2, 3. And 3, 4. And 1, 4. Maybe I'll resolve it so you can hear the C major chord there. Okay, so it's a lot to process at first, but if you start to practice, start to read the intervals and spaces and lines, then you'll have no problem playing any 12 note scale, the 14 hand assigned 12 note repertoires. Okay, now, is there any questions? Nothing?
I think we're good.
Okay, excellent. I hope it is a good sign. It's not like everyone is lost. Okay, good. Thank you. So now you might be thinking, so those 14 hand and Shelley techniques, those are only for the treble ringers. I never play there, so I don't need to learn. Or as a director, I only need to teach those to the treble ringers because the battery bells, they won't ever, never need to learn those skills. But that's not actually true. So these 14 handing or Shelley can come really useful when you play level 3, level 4 with a lot of changing chromatic, changing repertoires. Sometimes you just do not have enough hands to cover all of the bells, and you try to reassign to the ringers and neighboring the ringers. But sometimes the piece goes really hard. Nobody has any extra hands unless they are growing an extra hand, literally. Then Shelley and 14 hand technique can come really handy to cover extra accidental notes. So let's look at the next slide, which is the very last one. So I put little exercise before the actual example of the music. So if you look at B and A, B5 and A5, and I have A sharp in between, right? So we're going to practice. So I start with the B5 in my right hand, A sharp in my left hand. Okay, and then let's look at the next note. I have two bells, A and B. So let's think about this. I have a B and A sharp, and I have to play A with what? With my nose? Maybe not, right? And then there is no time to drop and pick it up between A sharp to A, yeah? And at the same time, I have to play B when I play the A. So this is what I do. B over A, Shelley, right hand, two slashes, right? So you set it like this. So I'll play it, B, A sharp. When I play A sharp, I'll table damp as I hook this B over A. And I'll damp it as I play the A sharp so I can stop the A. So if I don't do table damp at that moment, that I may not have enough time to hook up the A5 with the B5. So let me show you if I don't table damp what's going to happen. So it's going to be a little bit complicated. So it's better to damp it on the table as you're damping and hook up the B under the B5. So now let's look at the musical example right below the last slide. So now let's pay attention to the B5 and A5, which is third line, and the second space in the treble clef. So let's look at measure 25. So it starts with the B, and then I have a B followed by A sharp, so that's the exact same exercise that I just showed you, right? So if we look at the other parts, other ringers actually can help the ringer who has A5 and B5. But how many of you feel like you don't ever want to give up your bells? We are deep down, we are all bell hogs, right? So oh my gosh, I have so many bells to play. You sound like a complaining, but deep down inside, you're like, oh, I have so many bells to play. I'm so happy. How many of you feel like that? So, this Shelley ringing, actually in the regular ringing position, A5 and B5 will never have to learn 14 hand or Shelley technique. But if the one is capable of doing this, he or she can play these three bells by herself, by himself. So let me show you one more time, starting at measure 25. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Did you hear what the song was? Yeah, maybe you have. So let's look at the exercise one more time, starting at pick up to 28. So we have the 16th note, the left hand A sharp. As you play the A sharp, you hook it up as you damp it. And so I highly would recommend doing it in a Shelley position rather than the 14 hand there, because you have to definitely have to make sure that those two bells ring at the same time, and it's going to be too much to make it ring it together in 14 hand position. So Shelley will come really handy in this case. Is there any questions, everybody?
I think we're good, Hyosang.
Thank you, everybody. So I hope the Shelley ringing and 14 hand ringing, it might look like really hard if you're not used to, but it's a technique can come really handy once you learn, once you have it in your toolbox. You can play so much more, and especially the directors. If you have small choir and then you have 2 to 3 octave uh, music, you can play a lot of music with smaller numbers. So for example, if we go to the very first slide with assignment on it, let me just explain it really quickly. Thank you. The one before, the very first one, even before, very first one. Yes, thank you. So let's say you have 6 ringers, and then you have a 2 to 3 octave music. How are you going to cover all the bells? So I would play like this. So I'll start with the G4, starting with position 3. That's first ringer. And B4 and C5, second ringer. And 5, D5 and E5. And F and G, that's 4 ringers. And now you have so D and E and F, G, A, B. Next ringer covers 4 bells. And next ringer covers C, D, E, F. The last 6th ringer covers G, A, B, C. So if you have 7 ringers, then you go position 3, position 4, position 5, position 6, and 7 goes A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, A, and B, C. So you can divide those 14 hand position to any combinations depending on how good your bell ringer skills are. So those who are beginners, you can put in a little bit easier positions, and those who with Shelley and folding hand techniques, you can put them into where you have four diatonic bells hooked up in thirds. Then you will be able to play pieces that are not really easy. Maybe it's a little bit easier for the advanced ringers, but it's not too easy for the advanced ringers, but it's not too hard for the beginning, the ringers who are just learning. So you can use a repertoire that way. So thank you for joining today, everybody. So the YouTube channel that we have, the Mall Mark, will have this session uploaded this weekend or next week. So thank you for joining, everybody. Happy ringing.